All right, we are back, and now it's something he's very good at, the betting line. And he will be joining us Sunday to talk about his other passion, which happens to be thoroughbred horse racing. It is the Pegasus World Cup at Gulfstream. So before we talk the other betting line, that is the Super Bowl 52, you still think Gunrunner is the horse?
Well, I do. I mean, you can't argue against him. He's going to be a 4-5 favorite. And you know me from past discussions, I don't like to bet favorites. So I'm going to try and beat him. I think he's almost unbeatable if he gets the decent trip. The one thing going against him though, is he drafted the 10 hole. He's on the outside with 2 horses to his immediate right. So it's going to be difficult for him to get position before he gets to the clubhouse turn.
Listen, to give you an idea, this man puts a lot of time into this stuff, folks.
More pages than that one.
I know, but they're only going to get one. They have to do their own homework.
Yeah.
Hey, get this picture real quick. I want to see this, show this picture to everybody. You know, there was a few places in my life that I always wished I could have had a chance to visit. One was Dempsey's on Broadway in New York. The other was Toots Shores. Jackie Gleason, the greatest, my favorite, always would spend time there. But look at this great picture that David brought back many years ago from a friend's Chicago restaurant. And for those of you who are old enough, you may recognize some of these faces, but I'm going to give you a quick lesson here. Great comedian Phil Silvers right there. Ernie Kovac, just a tremendous talent. Keep going. There's Francis Albert from Hoboken, New Jersey. Rocky Graciano. Rod Steiger, the great actor. Joe Louis, who I had a chance in 1977 to meet in Las Vegas, my hero. Bert Lahr, you may remember him, the Cowardly Lion. Rocky Marciano, ladies and gentlemen, right there. Who else is in here that I might have missed, Dave?
Let's take another look. You got friend Rocky Graciano, you got Rod Steiger is there, Joe Louis is there.
Mm-hmm.
You got Rocky. Toots Shore is, I'm not sure whether I think that's him there, but I'm not sure about that. He's one of those, he's in the picture, and I think that's him. And you named the other ones that I know.
Tell me about your buddy, though, in Chicago, real quick. The former restaurateur that you were good friends with.
Well, on this, with regard to this picture, I went into his restaurant, and he has a whole gallery of pictures from every movie star that went into the place, and there were plenty of them. And I tried to buy the picture from him. He was maitre d' that night. I tried to buy the picture from him, and he said the picture wasn't for sale. So, I relented, and but about 6 or 8 weeks later, I go back to that same restaurant, and there was a young man that was maitre d' that night, and I had a couple of customers with me, and I went to back to the lobby where the maitre d' was, and I told him that I tried to buy that picture from the owner of the restaurant, and he said it wasn't for sale. So I said, I'm going to make you an offer for that picture. And he said, it's not for sale. And I said, you haven't heard my offer. And he says, well, what's your offer? So I gave him a number. I told him $1,000 for that picture. And he said, do you want it in a bag? So that was how I got it. And long story short, later on, I went back to the same restaurant, talked to the owner, and I wanted to return the picture to him. And he said, absolutely not. It's your picture. He says, you paid for it, and it's yours to keep.
Good stuff. Toots Shores, I would have loved to have been there. Okay, Super Bowl 52, February 4th, U.S. Bank Stadium, Minneapolis. Early line Patriots, 5.5-point favorite. LeGarrette Blount, former Steeler Patriot, now with Philadelphia. And the great Howie Long's son, Chris Long, also a former Ram and Patriot, won a Super Bowl with them last year, now with the Eagles. Patriots won their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years when they beat the Eagles in 2004. Appear in 8 now for Bill and Tom, as in Belichick and Brady, their era. This could be their 6th Lombardi trophy. So let's begin with Brady versus Nick Foles. What do you think?
Hard to believe that that Nick Foles can beat Tom Brady, all things being equal. But the one thing you have to consider is that the Eagles have a great defense. I don't think there's anybody on the Patriots' front 4 that can block Fletcher Cox. He's tremendous defensive end, and he's going to be in their face all day long. He's going to make it difficult for him. Chris Long is playing very well as well. From the standpoint of offense, Nick Foles has done the job because they got a tremendous offensive line.
All right, now defense wins championships. We all know, and he mentioned Fletcher Cox. They do, and is in there. Brandon Graham is in there. Also going to play some solid football as well. Belichick era for the Patriots, 159-15, pretty incredible. Foles, though, you have to say, has really done a remarkable job stepping in for Carson Wentz, who was having an MVP-like season. He got knocked out with the ACL injury. Now, when you look at the X factor, Danny Amendola, you got to look at him because he's racked up 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 18 catches. Been running some very great routes. He's got incredible speed. And New England's the first team with 10 Super Bowl appearances. They are 5-4 in their previous 9. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think, as I said before, Eagles got a great defense, and they're going to be putting a lot of pressure on Brady, a lot more than I think anybody else has done to this point. In their defensive backfield, they've got Mills, Robinson, and Darby, 3 quality defensive backs. Those guys are going to make it difficult for guys like Amendola to be as productive as he was against Jacksonville. So, having said that, I still go back to, in my opinion, you say defense wins the games, but I think quarterbacks win games, and it's hard to bet against Tom Brady.
Are you shocked? I mean, and here's something else too. They not only lost Carson Wentz, they lost left tackle Jason Peters, running back Darren Sproles, linebacker Jordan Hicks. They just keep chugging along. Are you surprised they're only a 5.5-point underdog?
No, I'm not, because I think it's no secret that they got a great defense, and from the standpoint of running backs, they got Ajay that's doing the job for him. Clemens is doing a good job, and LeGarrette Blount gets those tough yards for it.
He does.
He's the third and 2 or the 3rd and 4. LeGarrette Blount's the guy that usually is going to handle the ball if they're going to, in fact, run the ball, and he usually is going to do the job for him, and he does do the job for him. So, having said that, again, I like to go with the underdog, but in this case, I don't think they can beat. I don't think Nick Foles can beat Tom Brady.
We're going to catch up with you somewhere next week for sure, because we're going to spend just about every night next week, other than Monday. We're going to do that on the radio in the 9 o'clock hour with Bob Dvorak and Greg Dolis from the Coos Market Black and Gold Sunday Show. But I'll be out pretty much every night next week doing this stuff. By the way, Jim Schwartz, a great defensive coordinator, has been more than just, I think, perfect at times with that pass rush, obviously. But they've got something else, too, and a safety by the name of Malcolm Jenkins. He's got great versatility. He will be on full display. He can be aggressive at times, and especially if needed, if Gronk is in there because of the recent concussion that he suffered in that game against Jacksonville, he's going to be called upon to do something big to stop the greatest tight end in the game right now. Plus, he is amazing coming off the edge in their blitz packages as well. Now, here are just some things if you're into statistics, and you always throw this stuff into the mix if you're out there in Las Vegas, which is the greatest place in the world, from what I hear, to be there during Super Bowl weekend. And obviously, it's a legal place to place a wager. Some similarities, Dave, between the 2017 Eagles and their 04 and Dick Vermeil's 1980 team. All started 10-1, or matched franchise records in wins, finished in the top 10 in total offense and defense, and beat the Vikings in the playoffs. So, who knows? Maybe their time has come.
Yeah, you made a good point. You brought up Gronkowski, and I don't think there's anybody on Philadelphia's defensive backfield that can cover him. He's just a sensational player, and it helps to be 6'7" and about 250 pounds, and be able to run the 40 in about 4.5 or 4.6.
Listen, before I let you go, what do you think are going to be some of the betting trends to watch this week? Obviously, and heading into next week, practices, how people are feeling, what else? What do you think?
Well, I think for the most part, anybody that's going to bet this game has already made up their mind. I think it's a foregone conclusion.
You think that line will move at all?
No, I think it could go. It could go a half a point, but I don't see it going anywhere any more than 4.5. I think it'll go down if it does anything, but I don't see it going more than 4.5.
So we'll give you a chance next week. So you're saying take New England?
I am.
And the points, or you think if that thing would go up a point and a half, maybe take the Eagles in points?
I would take New England all the way up to 7 points. I would take New England up to 6.5. After that, it's it's not a safe bet after that, because 7 points would be a little too much to give.
The only connection that we have to leave the audience with is why it's hard for all of us from New Brighton not to bet with the Philadelphia Eagles is the fact that number 27, during those glory years of the late 70s, there was a guy by the name of Ron Poe James who grew up on New England Hill, who played a little football. And I was talking to my friend Mark Nemisak, who remembered the day that he came back in a very beautiful green with a Eagle logo, as in Philadelphia Eagles logo, on his car. To New England Hill where he grew up, Ron Poe James, and screamed out the window, "Hey Joe," as in Joe Nemisak. But I remember when he was on Monday Night Football with Howard Cosell, and they asked him, hey, where are you from? And he talked about New Brighton. And a lot of you may not even know who Ron Poe James is, because a few years have passed since he graduated in 1968. But make no mistake about it, he was a great football player.
Poe was, I think, probably the greatest ever to come out of New Brighton, and one of the greatest ever to come out of Beaver County. And testimony, I can remember watching him, and the thing that stands out in my mind most of all is a game they played against, New Brighton played against Bell Vernon. Bell Vernon at that time was AA, and New Brighton was a single A team. But New Brighton beat them, and the score was 34-33, and Poe scored all 34 points. It was the most amazing performance I have ever seen by a high school football player, and at any level almost. I've never seen anybody that dominant against such a good team, because Bell Vernon, I think at the time, was undefeated.
Well, I became a Philadelphia Eagles fan then because of Poe James. So I thought we would just take a little time and stroll down memory lane. As always, it's a pleasure and honor to be with Dave Pascal, and thanks to Marlene for shooting these videos. I think that's enough for one day. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.